Welcome to the Messy Middle Road Trip podcast. We are thrilled to have Heather Burright with us in the convertible today. Heather is the founder of Skill Masters Market, specializing in helping women who are looking for a career change gain the clarity and confidence that they need to find their dream job. As a coach, Heather focuses intentionally on her clients' needs in order to explore their options and invest in their future. Heather has coached all levels of leadership and now focuses on women who are ready to make a career transition. Her expertise allows her to provide the necessary structure and strategic direction to find the right fit. We know you'll love it, so grab the snacks, call shotgun, and let's hit the road for another episode.
I'm Sandra.
And I'm Nicole, and we're entrepreneurs,
Wives,
a mom,
a favorite auntie,
creative souls,
and women who are fearlessly navigating the middle of life.
We created a community of women over 40 who embrace the past, appreciate where we are now, and take action to live our best life because it's all about the journey. Hey, Heather, how are you today?
Hey there.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for jumping on board with us. We're so excited to start our conversation. And as you know, we ask all of our guests the very important question. If you could go on an epic road trip with anyone living or dead, who would it be? And bonus points if you know where you're going.
Yeah, so I think mine is kind of specific to our current pandemic environment of being stuck at home for a very long time, because I'm actually going to choose my husband with no kids and, and had 7 months of kids. So I would choose my husband, and we are going to go on an epic road trip to Glacier National Park.
Ooh, that sounds fantastic. Have you been?
I have no idea how far that is. I probably should have researched that. It's got to be a long drive.
It's all right. That's good bonding time. I love that. Have you been there before?
I haven't. It's on my bucket list. And I know it doesn't sound like some extravagant, glamorous bucket list item, but I was watching a show about it at some point, and they were talking about how like the glaciers will eventually go away. And I'm just like, I have to go. At some point, I have to go.
Very cool. I love that. And are you a photography buff? I imagine the landscape there would be just gorgeous.
Yeah, no kidding.
Take a few selfies and make sure you're capturing the moment. That's awesome.
Right. No, my photography involves my iPhone, and that's about it.
Well, these days, it seems like that's all you need, especially if you have one of the higher level phones. The cameras are amazing.
That's true. That's
yeah.
true.
So I would love to talk a little bit about your journey and how you got to this place. And found yourself as a coach. I imagine when you were going through school, you weren't necessarily thinking about becoming a coach, but here you are. I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about how you got here.
Yeah. So I have about 15 years or so of experience on what I like to call the people side of organizations, and have done learning and development for a number of those years. And the last quote unquote corporate role that I had was actually with a national nonprofit, where I identified the competencies that people would need to be successful across their career. And so competencies, basically just a fancy way of saying skills, leadership skills, soft skills. But we looked at the competencies that people would need to be successful throughout their career. So whether you are a frontline, part-time staff person to the C-suite level staff in the organization, we went through and identified the skills that you would need to be successful. And then I created the resources that would be needed to help our staff hire, onboard, and develop people with those skills in mind. And as part of that, I led some of the coaching initiatives that we had there, and just fell in love with coaching, and knew that it was something that if I ever had my own business, I would want to incorporate. So I actually started a consulting business in May of this year. Great time to start a business. And decided that while I was doing that, I wanted to include coaching, and specifically coaching for women who are seeking a career change, but lack that clarity about what that might be. I feel like women are often interested in doing something different. Maybe they're not fulfilled. Things change as you mature and get older and get new experiences. And it can be hard to really figure out okay, I don't necessarily want to keep doing what I'm doing now, but I don't know what else is out there, or I don't know if I would be any good at something else. And so there's a lot of fear and doubt involved, and we kind of stick to what's comfortable. But I believe that people are happiest when their careers align with their values and their capabilities. And so that's really where I like to come in as a career coach and say, let's help you identify those values and those capabilities that you have so that you can find a career that's really well aligned with those.
Mm-hmm. And I would argue, I think actually now is the perfect time for you to be doing what you're doing, right? Don't you think, Nicole?
Yeah, I think that there are so many people that have found themselves without a job, which kind of opens you up to the potential, right? You're like, if not now, when? Right? So I love that you did that. I love that you jumped in and took that risk. And in the midst of, like you said, dealing with kids at home and launching a business must have been like, whew. But kudos to you that you did that. That's amazing.
Thank you. I think, with challenge comes opportunity. And like you said, we find ourselves in different positions, and you never know what's going to give you the push that you need to try something new. But for me, I went through a career transition around that time and just decided this was it. This was the time that I'd always wanted to have a business at some point. I thought it would be a little later in my career than it was, but May of 2020 ended up being the right time for me.
Excellent. Well, speaking of 2020, so for so many of us, this has been a huge year of transition and in reassessing, I think, for so many of us. Why is it important to work with someone to really look at the big picture of where we are, and then also looking to see where we want to end up? Because for most of us at this point in midlife, we're like, oof, like, is this really what we want to be doing for the rest of our days, right? In our working careers?
Yeah. I always start with life vision when I'm working with someone as a career coach. And I'm not sure if all career coaches do that or not, but I feel like your career is one part of your life. And our lives are hectic at times. They are challenging at times. They are exciting at times. But you have to ground your career in your overall life vision if you really want to be fulfilled and feel like there's not this constant tension of work life. And I think we're going to talk about work-life balance a little bit today. It usually comes up in things like this, but your career is one part of your life. And so you want it to really fit and feel good. So I definitely like to work with women and say, imagine your life 6 to 12 months from now. You're happy, you're fulfilled. You feel those things then that you want to feel now. What are you doing and who are you with? And think about your relationships, think about parenting, think about finances, think about all of those things, not just your career, because we can then zoom in on your career and figure out what that is. But we want that bigger picture first. I mentioned my transition from full-time employee to consultant. That was part of something unexpected happening. And so we can't plan for everything in our life, but we can have a vision of what we want and then align our career with that.
I love that. And, I want to expand on that because I know it was a question that we were going to cover, and it's a good transition to get into it. But I agree with you that I don't think that there really is a work-life balance. It's just, we've got different tasks that we need to do to navigate both. And I think your dream job either works with your bigger vision or it doesn't, period. Right. And, I can share that when I went through college, I graduated with a degree in mass communication television. So I got involved in the television industry, which is super demanding. But in my early 20s, it was me. That's all I had to worry about. I had no other responsibility. So I was okay with working weekends, working nights, working 12 to 14-hour days. There was no other pull for what I needed. And I had a lot of energy at that time, right?
Have to.
But clearly that changed, right? When we fast forward and I started thinking about getting married, we really wanted to get a dog. And I was commuting crazy. I was working crazy hours. And then down the road, we were thinking about, well, maybe if we keep the dog alive, we might think about having children, but thinking about kind of that big career vision, can you speak to kind of hitting that sweet spot and finding the right fit.
Yeah, you bring up a good point, because our ideal career path can change. When you were in college and you decided to pursue mass communication and go into the television industry, that could have been the perfect career path for you at that point in your life. But that doesn't mean that it will be the perfect career path for the rest of your life. So I always like to think about, the future, but kind of the near future, that 6 to 12 month range. And I always tell people, we're not looking for your last career, we're looking for the next right career for you. I actually think that relieves some of the pressure too, to know that you can pivot and you can change if you need to, if things in your life change. But we want to get you in a place where you're fulfilled now. And so what is your next right career? I think, things do change. One of the reasons that I incorporate values into my process is because when I had my first child, that was something that was really highlighted for me. I knew that I wanted to work. I didn't want to be a stay-at-home mom, so I knew I'd be returning to the office, but I was not expecting to feel a conflict on my time. And so it was once I had my first child that I realized I really wanted flexibility in my job. I really wanted to be able to say, yes, I'm coming into the office today, but I'm not tomorrow, because I don't want to spend 2 hours on a train commuting in and out of work. I wanted also meaning in what I was doing. I was working for a nonprofit. I had some of that meaning sort of embedded in my work, but I wanted to know that what I was doing had purpose. Again, I wanted to work. I wanted to be outside the home, but I wanted to know that whatever I was doing outside the home, whatever was taking me away from my child, was something that brought me meaning and gave me a sense of purpose. So it was that moment that I realized, not that I was in the wrong career path, but that I really needed to make sure my values were aligned as I was going into work every day, which is why I incorporate that with my clients now.
And when you're working with your clients in regard to values, like how do you help them access that? How do you help them figure out what their vision is, and then how the skills and everything else kind of come together to find the work that is really most meaningful to them?
Yeah. So I typically work with my clients over 6 sessions over 12 weeks. And we do the work to discover what the vision, values, and skills are. So from a vision perspective, we do a visioning session where we really think about what that future state looks like. We kind of envision a day in the life. So from the time you wake up to the time you go to bed, what are you doing? Who are you with? Are you waking up to an alarm clock? Are you waking up on your own? Are you having a hot breakfast? Are you eating on your way out the door? Are you dropping children off at school or daycare or wherever? Or are you getting on a train to commute into the office? Are you getting in your car? Are you moving from your bedroom to a home office? So we start to think through, no detail is too small for us envisioning your day in a life. And then when we talk about values, I like to figure out where your energy comes from. And so I ask questions like, what makes you tick? And what ticks you off? Because we need
I love
both
that.
aspects of that.
Yeah.
We need to know where you're getting your energy, and we need to know what's draining your energy. And this will really help you figure out, once you identify your values, it will really help you figure out 1, career paths that are a good fit, 2, organizations that are a good fit, and 3, team dynamics. And so it's really, really important stuff. And I love having those conversations with people. I ask the questions, you do the work to identify the vision and values, and then we kind of pull the themes together from those conversations. As far as skills go, it's a little bit different because it depends on whether you're changing industries completely or just changing career paths within the same industry. So for example, if you're a nurse and you're going into education, you probably have some technical skills that you're going to leave behind, right? You're probably not going to be giving injections in a school setting. So you're going to leave that technical skill behind. Your soft skills become much more important. So how you're interacting with that patient is transferable. And so we want to identify those types of skills to help you move into that other industry. And I do this, it can be done a few different ways. I do like to ask questions like, what does your supervisor depend on you for? What do your peers always come to you about, when they're seeking advice? Things like that to help identify what your strengths and your skills are. But I also offer an assessment as an option if you want to take an assessment and get some more formal input from those around you to help you identify those skills. And then we can say, okay, these are your top skills. Let's think about how they transition into this new career path.
That's fascinating, because I think what you just unpacked right there, not many of us ever do that, ever go through that process ever in the course of trying to find a job or a career. I can remember doing a brief counseling session shortly after I graduated college. And when he started to ask me those questions about my skills and things, one of the things that he said to me, which was so eye-opening at the time, was he really said, you need to come to the table with more confidence for what you can actually do. And you need to share that, because I was very, not introverted, but I was holding back. I was not confident at this point in my life, never mind career, to be able to express that and share, this is what I do well, and this is what I can bring to the table. So I love the line of questioning that you have there to really help people to hone that and to focus in on that and to acknowledge it, because it might be something that they maybe think inside, but they've never actually said it to another human soul. Or admitted it out loud. So I think that's a terrific process to go through. Even if maybe you're not thinking about actually transitioning a career, but maybe even to just better yourself inside the one that you're currently in, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think sometimes when things come to us naturally, we don't see it as a skill that we can apply to other things. So when we're asked certain questions, that doesn't even seem like an answer, because if we have really good people skills and we are great at building relationships, we may not say right off the bat, well, I'm a great communicator, or I'm a great connector, because it happens so easily. We're like, well, doesn't everybody do this? And I imagine that happens all the time when you're assessing people and helping them figure it out.
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of people have never stopped to think about what they're good at. And so if you just ask them, like, what are your strengths? You might get one or two things out of them. You're probably going to get more silence than anything. But if you start to frame the questions in their experiences, it's a little easier to pull those strengths out.
I can remember saying things like, I'm punctual, like,
not a bad trait.
It's not a bad trait, but so much richer answers than that, right? When you really dig into it. So yeah, I love that. So Heather, we've all heard the saying that if you love your job, you'll never work a day in your life, right? But I think that that's something that's kind of brushed to the side, but there's real context with that, and I know Sandra and I can both share that we love what we do with our jobs. And granted, we're both entrepreneurs in that, but you can still find a 9-to-5 job that you love what you do. And unfortunately, I think many of us kind of settle out of fear or a scarcity mindset, which you kind of touched on, opting for that steady paycheck or insurance instead of doing what sets your soul on fire. So why is it so important to align our careers with our values and our talents?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's nothing wrong with working for a steady paycheck if you value stability. But if you value creativity and you work with spreadsheets all day, you're likely never going to feel happy or fulfilled. So I think it's about figuring out what those values are so that you can apply it. If you value stability, I like to say a startup might not be the place for you, because a startup is known for always changing, always innovating, pivoting, adapting. And so it might not provide that stability that you're looking for, like an established organization might. If you value time with your family, then a job with 80% travel might not be a great fit for you. So I know I'm answering this kind of with examples, but I think it's important to think about these things, because sometimes we think values is like the fluffy stuff, right? But it's how we make decisions, whether we realize it or not. And when we aren't aligned, we feel inner conflict. We're not going to feel fulfilled if our values and our jobs are not aligned.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that translates into how we show up at home to our families after.
Yeah, for
How
sure.
many how many people do you hear like, oh, I had a terrible day at work, and they come home and it just colors their evening, right? They kind of step in the
Does.
door like trying to shut off that feeling of whatever they're dealing with, whether they're angry with their boss or they're fed up with their coworkers, or they're drowning in projects like you said that does not fill their, it's not filling their cup. So yeah, I would think you would want something that you could easily transition from one into the next, feeling good about what you did during your day, feeling proud about your stuff that you
Yeah.
accomplish, but
Yeah.
then allowing you to show up as who you want to be, you know.
Yeah. It's not that you'll never have a bad day, but
Right.
that constant conflict is where you don't want to find yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. I remember over 10 years ago when I finally made the decision that I was going to leave my day job and begin my business. It was a really scary time and I wasn't quite ready to do it. I kept putting it off and I kept putting it off because I kept wondering, will I make the money that I need to make in order to pay my mortgage and go on vacation and, do whatever it is that I wanted to do. And then something happened within my job where I kind of made a misstep. And all of a sudden I was like, wait a minute, did I do that on purpose? Am I really ready to take this leap? Um, and the good news was that I was ready and I needed like a little push to just kind of make it happen. I'm wondering how often you have conversations with your clients about the financial piece of finally making a transition to something new or just moving on to another level. Like, what does that look like for people?
Yeah. So sometimes finances will come up when we talk about the vision or the values, because sometimes that's an important factor for people. And it's highlighted. Maybe in their vision, they're talking about certain things they want to accomplish. Like you said, maybe they're envisioning that mortgage that they're going to pay or those vacations they want to go on. Sometimes it comes up as a value because we all have different money mindsets, and so it can come up in that area as
Mhm.
well. Sometimes it's not touched on at all until we get to this sort of decision making phase. But if it has not come up naturally in vision and values, I do like to draw attention to it in the decision making process because it is important. And sometimes we don't want to talk about money, or we don't know like what it would look like, and can we really make a career transition and still make a living because that is a real fear. I want to be an author, but can I afford to pay my bills if I'm an author? Because it's not like you just write a book and suddenly you're a bestseller. So I do run into that, and it's definitely a part of that conversation in the decision making process, if not before. I think it's important. My process, once we've done the vision, values, and skills piece, there comes a time where you're brainstorming career paths and you're narrowing those down, and you're doing research about those different career paths. And so I always include it in that phase.
Mhm.
Websites like PayScale and Salary, I think salary.com, offer some information about salary for different types of career paths. And I think the Department of Labor has some on their website as well. So I point people to some different resources just to make sure that they're going to be able to meet their needs, but then also meet their underlying needs or desires, right? So it's not just about paying your bills, but what else do you really need to be financially stable and secure, and go on those vacations or whatever it is that you want to do.
Yeah. Do your clients ever find in these assessments that all of a sudden they realize, well, this is not I'm not ready to make this transition to this other kind of job because the money piece is so crucial to me,
Mm-hmm.
and if I know I can't do this, then maybe now is not the right time?
Yeah, definitely. And I've seen clients say like, I really want to do this, but I'm not sure that this is going to pay me what I need it to pay me. So I'm going to do this and then work my way into that. And so
Uh-huh.
it
I love
starts to
that.
become a process, right? So let's go with the author example. Maybe they want to be an author, they're probably not going to be a bestseller on their first book, right? I think they say your first book is never good, but I mean, I would never like tell my client that, but you know what I mean? Like they say your first book is never that good, and to write your first book and then put it away and start your next book. And so let's say you want to be an author, that might be something that you decide to carve out an hour a week or 2 hours a week or whatever makes sense for you and your lifestyle to work on that while you're still in your 9 to 5. Or if your 9 to 5 is really not fulfilling you, maybe we find another career path that also allows you the time that you need to dedicate to becoming an author.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. Elizabeth Gilbert, who wrote Big Magic, talks a little bit about being an author and really giving herself to that craft, but also not having to, like she didn't, I can't remember exactly how she put it, but she worked other jobs for a very long time while she wrote, because she didn't want to always have to worry about paying the bills and sacrificing the kind of writing that she wanted to put out in the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love it. Heather, I just want to touch a little bit on the financial piece, which I think is so important, especially at midlife. When you are venturing into a new career, especially as a woman, it's one thing to do your research about what that job normally pays. It's a whole other can of worms to be able to show up to that interview table and ask for what you are worth, right? Because again, with that confidence and what you can bring to the table from a skill set perspective, you know, we still have a ways to go with breaking the glass ceiling, but it's out there that if you're up against a man who's looking to get the same position, chances are the salary that is offered you is going to be less than. So really kind of being self-aware on that, and really being confident enough and bold enough to ask for what you think you're worth, right?
Yeah. It's for me, so I like to separate a little bit on the ask and the what you're worth. So you can always ask for what you want. They're either going to say yes, no, or maybe. And whatever their answer is, it's just information. So if you say, I'm worth $100,000 a year, and you go in and you ask for that, and they say no, that's information for you to then make a decision. Are you willing to go in under that number for this particular job? Or do you want to take your value elsewhere, in another organization that will recognize that you're worth $100,000? So you still have control. You still have the ability to say, yes, I'm willing to negotiate, or no, I'm walking away. So it's just information. The other thing, and I did not make this up, I heard this or read this somewhere, I can't remember which, I wish I could give credit, but it's important to note, if you've already laid out all of the reasons that you are a good fit for the position, and someone asks you why you think you're worth a certain dollar amount, to turn it around and say, why do you think I'm not worth that dollar amount? Yeah. And again, I didn't make this up. I can't remember. I actually had someone in my private Facebook group do a salary negotiation session a couple weeks ago, and I can't remember if it was from her presentation or if I read it. But I think there's so much value in that. I've already told you everything I'm bringing to the table. I've already told you everything that I'm going to add to your organization. If you're still asking me why I'm worth $100,000, I want to know what's making you pause. Because it may be something that I offer that I just haven't noticed. I haven't, noted out loud, or there may be something else going on there that I need to know about. Again, it's information that I can then take and make a decision.
I love that.
And do you find that between men and women, it is different how women are willing to negotiate, or how they think about negotiating versus how men do it?
Yeah, I do. And I don't have all the stats offhand, but men are much more likely to ask for a raise. They're much more likely to talk about money with their supervisors. They're much more likely to come in at a higher end of the range on the offer to begin with. So I think whatever they're doing is different than what we're doing because we're not even asking for it in most cases.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, I remember years ago when I was working corporate, and there was a job possibility that I was curious about, but I felt like I wasn't quite experienced enough for it. And I remember another woman in my office who was a consultant who was older than me and had more years of experience. And she said, "So this is what I think you should do. If you're interested in it, you should apply and go for it 100%. And while you're in the midst of that job, I will coach you along in the things that you don't know what you're doing or you're still kind of learning how to do. And you're going to be fine because you don't need to know how to do all of the job before you say yes to it."
Yeah.
And I think that that happens often for women, that they feel like they need to know every aspect of a job before they can even apply for it, which doesn't really make sense. I mean, there are so many skills that we bring to a position. We may not have all the experience we need to do it 100% right off the bat, but isn't that
Right.
just the way it goes?
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, you want a job that's going to stretch you a little bit, give you a little bit of a challenge.
Mhm.
So it's okay if you don't have every skill that's listed on the job description.
Right. But
Most women actually won't apply unless they have all of the skills, whereas men, I think it's like 30% or 40% or something, they'll apply if they have, not even half of the skills that are listed. So, I think it's important, if you're interested in it, apply for it, ask for it, because like I said, if they say no, it's just information.
Mhm. Yeah.
it's
And
funny because I did a job interview years ago, and during the interview, I was asked to do a mail merge exercise. I had
wow.
never in my life done a mail merge. Thank goodness for the little paperclip guy that you can click on for the tutorial. I was like, he's going to walk me through this. And sure enough, didn't he get me the job? Because by the end of that session, I was like, now I can confidently do a mail merge. And if I
Right.
I can just click the paperclip. So sometimes you just have to be bold and say, I'm going to give it my all. And if I fall on my face and I don't get it, well, at least I have the experience to take from that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm. Well, this has been really kind of amazing. I love talking about career movement and transition and really just tapping into your natural skills that make you good at whatever it is that you want to pursue. What is the best way for folks to be able to reach out to you, Heather?
Yeah, so I am on Instagram and Facebook under It's Her Beautiful Story. And I have a private Facebook group for career women on Facebook, obviously, also under It's Her Beautiful Story, but it's a community for career women is also part of the title. So if you search It's Her Beautiful Story, you should find both of those, the page and the group.
Love that. That's great. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Heather, for joining us today and
Thank you for
just
having me.
sharing all your wisdom and your information. I think it's a really important topic, and I'm so glad that we dug into it with you.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Messy Middle Road Trip podcast and feel empowered to take that first step to walk away from a career that is no longer serving you and pursue your dream job.
If you want to keep the conversation going, visit us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, or messymiddleroadtrip.com. And if you like what we're doing, please consider subscribing to the podcast and leaving us a rating and review so we can reach more amazing middlers.
We're looking forward to our next road trip with you. Until then, thanks for riding shotgun.